Hi, I'm Rebecca Balcarcel. Let's take a look at Shakespeare's Sonnet 129. I wish this were a more positive sonnet, but in fact its message is basically lust makes you crazy before, during, and after. So that's the message. But hopefully you'll be able to see how artfully Shakespeare puts this together in the 14 lines of the sonnet. So let's take a look. His first line and a half makes a phrase. The expensive spirit in a waste of shame is lust in action. So he's defining lust here. He's saying lust in action is the expensive spirit in a waste of shame. So what's he saying here? Well, the expensive spirit, this means the expenditure or the spending of spirit, but spirit here is energy, mental energy, emotional energy, physical energy. It's not a religious term, it's simply life force. So the expense of that life force, spending your energy in a waste of shame. That's what lust in action is. So let's look at this waste of shame. He's referring to the fact that you feel shame after having sex. He's saying that this is a waste of energy because it leads to this feeling of shame, guilt, or it's such a shame that you've wasted your energy this way. So this is a squandering of perfectly good energy. However, we also can hear the word waste as referring to a person's waist, meaning that, around the area that we're talking about when we get into sexual talk. So the waste of shame. Another echo here is waste as in to destroy. So if you lay waste to a city, then you are destroying the city. And waste of shame would be a destruction of modesty, of virginity, of chastity. When people say, have you no shame? They're saying, have you no sense of what's right or proper? Have you no modesty? So wasting the shame in this case would be destroying something good, like your manners and your sense of protocol. So there's two meanings here. The primary one, though, is that lust makes you waste your energy, waste it on a sexual act, which makes you feel shameful ultimately. So it doesn't get any more cheerful from here. It continues on that theme all the way to the end. Now, this definition that he has just created, where he says lust in action is this waste of shame, listen to how it's inverted. Instead of saying lust is this, he says all this long line of stuff is lust. The expense of spirit in a waste of shame is lust in action. So he has given us a long foreplay, so to speak. He's created this long phrase that builds and builds, and finally, after the line break, onto the second line, we get the payoff. And it's just that lust is what we're talking about. The whole first line goes by without knowing what are we talking about. We don't know until we go to the next line and we see that it's lust in action. So just like the act of sex has this long foreplay or this long beginning, it has the payoff in a very short moment, and that's when everything coming before makes sense. So you can see the mirroring of the act and the language. Now moving on, this is the second part of line 2. And till action, lust is perjured, murderous, bloody, full of blame, savage, extreme, rude, cruel, not to trust, and it goes on. So this is a list of adjectives about lust. So he says, until action, so until we actually take action with this lust, the lust is perjured, murderous, bloody, full of blame, and savage, extreme. So let's take a look at some of these words that describe the lust. First, we have perjured. Now, to commit perjury is to lie on the witness stand in a court of law. But here, the lust turns you into a liar. So lust makes a liar out of you. So things that you promised you wouldn't do, here you are doing. Then lust is also murderous. That means causing people to murder someone, or it causes harm. And then it's called bloody and full of blame. Now notice that bloody and blame have BL in common, a little repetition of sound there. Full of blame has to do with that guilt and that sense of shame and harm, feeling that you are to blame for something. The bloody part, well, you have to know that in this time period they thought that a male turned his blood into semen. Also, we have female blood involved if we're talking about someone who's never had sex before. So there's two possible readings of bloody. Neither one is really too pleasant. There's a third meaning, which might just be that when the blood is running hot, then we behave impulsively without thinking. Your energy is flowing and making you want to act, and in that sense it's bloody. So lust is perjured, murderous, bloody, full of blame, savage. Now savage here means uncivilized, wild. Extreme, same meaning as today. Rude, not the same meaning. Normally we say rude means to be impolite, but here it means low, common, even dirty. So savage, extreme, rude, cruel, same meaning as today, not to trust. So this is all adjectives, descriptions of lust. Now notice we had, in line 2, we started with this phrase, is lust in action, and then he has a comma, and then we have until action, lust is perjured, murderous, bloody. So we have action, lust, action, and those kinds of little repetitions and reflecting back kind of phrases happen here because the theme of the poem is that you regret something. So you take an action and then you want to take it back. So he puts lust in action out there and then he pulls it back with action, lust. So we have the flipping of the words to reflect the flipping of the perspective. Now, line 5. Enjoyed no sooner, but despised straight. So this person that you've been enjoying, no sooner do you enjoy them when you turn around and despise them. So this again is that going forward and then regretting and coming back. So enjoying this person, but quickly turning that joy into despising, into hatred. So enjoyed no sooner, but despised straight. Straight means immediately, right away. Enjoyed, but then immediately despised, hated. And we're talking about lust itself as well as the person that you're having sex with. Past reason hunted and no sooner had, past reason hated. Now here is a line and a half or so. He's saying past reason hunted, referring to the person that you're trying to have sex with. So you're hunting this person. Past all reason, without logic, just wildly, you're hunting, you're past reason, you're beyond logic. Past reason hunted, and no sooner had, so no sooner do you catch that person and have them, and have is a sexual word here, I had her, or I had him, means that I got to have sex with them. So no sooner had, past reason hated. So no sooner do you have this person, then now you hate them, past all reason, past all logic, beyond the bounds of regular rationality. And this mirrors what we said before about enjoyed and then despised. So now we have hunted, but then hated. And notice that hunted and hated both start with H, and they both end with ted, hated, hunted. So another little sound play that Shakespeare's doing there. So past reason hunted, and no sooner had, past reason hated. Now he compares. How much do you hate this person now? He's going to give us a comparison. Past reason hated as a swallowed bait, on purpose laid to make the taker mad. So he says, you feel about this person the same way you would feel about getting tricked, swallowing the bait that had been laid out for you, that was purposely put there just to drive you crazy, to make the taker mad. So, as swallowed bait, on purpose laid, and notice laid is another sexual reference. Even today we have the word laid to refer to the sex act. So, on purpose laid to make the taker mad. Listen to all the A sounds. We have bait, laid, make, and it makes the taker mad, not angry, but crazy, frenzied. Now, taker is related to rape because one can refer to she was taken or he took her, and that's a reference to forced sexual activity. And that taker swallowed the bait. And the bait was this promise of pleasure, this lust took the bait, and now the taker is crazy, meaning frenzied and wild. Okay, so this person hates the object of his affection now that he feels like he was taken in. Past reason hated, as a swallowed bait would be hated, laid there on purpose laid to make the taker mad. So not a healthy relationship here, not a relationship at all, just a sexual encounter. We just ended with the word mad, make the taker mad, and the next line starts, mad in pursuit and in possession so. So we have the repetition of mad, it's a building, it's an addition. Mad in pursuit. So while this person is pursuing this sexual conquest, while they're chasing the person, it's a mad pursuit. It's a wild, not a rational pursuit, right? So mad in pursuit and in possession. So even once you get the person and have the sex, even when you possess the person, you are still in madness. You're still just in a crazy place. So whether you're pursuing or you're possessing, and notice those two words mirror each other with the P's and the S's, both make you crazy. Then the next line, had, having, and in quest to have, extreme. So he's referring to before the act, during the act, and after the act. But he flips them backwards. Had, meaning I have had her, had the sex. Had, having, in the midst of having it, and in quest to have, while having it is my goal, while I'm in pursuit of it, while I'm chasing this, extreme. So while I'm in this lustful mode, whether I'm at the beginning in the quest of it, whether I'm having the sex, or whether I have had it and have finished, in all cases I'm still in extreme. The person is in this extreme state all throughout the whole process. Had, having, and in quest to have, extreme. A bliss in proof, and proved a very woe. A bliss in proof. That means ecstasy while you're trying to prove that the lust is going to be a good thing. You think lust will be a good thing. You think the sex will be a good thing. And while you're proving it, it seems like it's a bliss, like it's an ecstasy. It's not a heavenly bliss, okay? It's not a spiritual bliss. The word bliss now is used that way a lot. But here it's just that intense pleasure. So it seems like a pleasure while it's happening. And proved, that means once it's been tested, it turns out to be a very woe. And proved a very woe. So it turns out to be a woe, a sadness, a calamity. And not just a woe, but a very woe. Very here means verily, verifiably, an actual verifiable woe. And woe turns out to be what they used to call a woman, a woe man. And this is an unfortunate expression that I do not like, but here it is. The woe has this double meaning. Not only is it a sadness and a calamity, but it is a reference for a woman, an expression to refer to women. So it seems like a bliss in proof, but proved tested more, you end up finding out it's a very woe. Before, a joy proposed, behind, a dream. And this is the end of the sentence. We've had a 12-line sentence here. So the line again is before, a joy proposed. So looking forward to it, it seems like a joy that's being proposed. That the sexual act is going to be a joy, a pleasure. Before, that's what you think about it. Behind, when you look behind you at what you have done after the sex act and you regard it from the other side, you feel like it's not so good, and in fact it's a dream. Now, dream for us has a positive connotation, but here it doesn't mean a dream come true. It means a dream as in something ephemeral, something not lasting, something fleeting and unsubstantial. So it's an illusion. It's over with and it's gone and it's like a ghost, kind of. So it seemed to be something good and true and permanent, but it turns out to be fleeting, unsubstantial, and disappointing. Before, a joy proposed, behind, a dream. Now, the last two lines are a truism or a statement of wisdom. All this the world well knows. So everybody knows this to be true. Everyone knows about lust that it's like this. It's like a trick that gets played on you. Yet none knows well to shun the heaven that leads men to this hell. So no one knows well enough, nobody understands it thoroughly enough to avoid it. It keeps happening to us. And he says to shun that heaven, that means to deny yourself, to say, no, I don't want that, to this heaven, this promise of pleasure, but it actually leads to hell, to agony, to bad feelings. So all this the world well knows, yet none knows well to shun, to not choose the heaven that leads men to this hell. Of course, there are some sexual puns in these lines. All used to refer to a man's body parts, so all this the world well knows. Well refers to a woman's body parts. You can kind of see where that comes from if you think about water wells or oil wells. All this the world well knows. Knows is another sexual word. I know her, in the biblical sense, the biblical knowing, he knew her, it says, and it always means he slept with her. I know her means I've slept with her. So this little phrase has three sexual references. All this the world well knows, yet none knows well. Okay, now stop. We have well knows well. And doesn't that sound familiar? Because we had the lust in action, action, lust. We have a lot of these repetitions and turnings. So well knows well, yet none knows well to shun that heaven that leads men to this hell. Heaven. Let's talk about that word. Seems straightforward, but in this time period, they would say heaven. And heaven is the same as the word having without the ing pronounced really clearly, so heaven. And of course, having a person is another way to say that you've had sex with them. I had her, or I had him. So heaven leads to hell. Now, when it says that it leads men to this hell, does it mean humans, or really does it mean male people? I don't know. It could be either one. Considering some of the other language, like woe referring to woman, I think it is pretty much aimed at men, but that's open to discussion. In any case, this heaven, or heaven, leads men to this hell. And the hell is mostly a mental state, the agony of regret and guilt and shame, and not so much the physical place of hell within the Christian tradition. One more thing, heaven, besides being pronounced heaven, having, it's also similar to the pronunciation of haven, heaven, haven. And a haven is a refuge, a place that you thought would be safe, and it turns out that it leads to hell, that it wasn't a haven after all. And a haven is usually a sheltered area, maybe like a cave. When there's pouring rain, you seek haven in a overhang, in a covered spot. And wouldn't you know, that too refers to a female sexual part. So heaven is doing a lot of work there with having and haven. And it still leads to the hell, the emotional hell. Well, that gives you an idea about this poem and some of what's going on with the language, the puns, the going forward and the retreating, and the regret that's built into the language as well as into the theme. I hope you'll join me for another video sometime.